Hello and welcome to Gamer Latte. My name is Ellen and I hope you are having a good day so far. My day has been brought to me by hazelnut lattes, but I'm feeling good. I am back again to talk about Stardew Valley, my one true love, I think it's fair to say. I would love to eventually, it was always my plan, to eventually start doing like Stardew Sundays where I either stream a new save of Stardew Valley or do a discussion video on it. If that's something that you'd be interested in, then please let me know, particularly the Let's Play streamy side of things, because there is nothing worse than doing a stream to like 2 people. So if you would attend, please let me know because I would love to see as many of you as possible there. But yes, in this video I'm going to be talking about the Stardew Valley 14 Heart events. After my last video where I briefly mentioned that I'm not a huge fan of Alex's 14 Heart event, I thought it was only fair to look at the others, the ones that I haven't experienced, to see how it measures up, because I may not like it, but in the grand scheme of things it may have been a perfectly adequate 14 Heart event. However, after going and looking at other ones, I realised that some of them are fantastic and Alex's really doesn't measure up, so I thought I would put them into a list. I would talk about my favourite 14 Heart events, but also a couple of my least favourite. Although, to keep the balance, to keep it positive, I'm going to do my top 3 and then my bottom 2, because there really aren't any that there aren't any that I hate. There's just a couple that I fervently dislike, shall we say. And I'm going to start with them so that we can end on a high. And I'm going to start with the one that will come as no surprise to you, Alex's 14 Heart event. He is my favourite spouse in Stardew Valley, but I found his 14 Heart event to be really disappointing. I love the fact that in 14 Heart events they can sometimes give you items or unlock new parts of the map, add new little features to the map. And Alex's is one of those. His heart event opens with him asking you for 5 grand from your joint account, although like I mentioned, how joint is it when all he does is sell ice cream in 1 season of 4? But if you give him that money, he says he's got a surprise, you can come and see it at the tavern on Sunday. You go there and it turns out what he's done is converted one of Gus's back rooms into a space where the guys, specifically the guys, which is what bothers me a lot as well, can watch the game on Sunday basically. And it's him, Shane, Kent, and his granddad, and Gus, which is another thing I wanted to say. It means that Gus is just not behind the till in the tavern for a really long period of time on Sunday, so you just cannot buy your salads to give to Leah and your pizzas to give to Sam. But yes, the main reason I'm not a huge fan of that event is because it really plays on the one thing that makes me sad about marriage in Stardew, is that a lot of these people have really big dreams, a lot of them are defined by their interests and the dreams that they're having. And when they marry you, those dreams die, basically. You have this lovely new relationship together and they often say that, you know, they're still living the dream, it's just different to what they expected. But there is a sadness there because they give up on this thing that they were striving for up until they married you. And with Alex's dream, sure, he was very lofty in his goals and he's also quite level-headed and realistic about how achievable they may or may not be. But it really feels like this 14 Heart event signifies that his dreams have died. I'm going to be completely honest. It signifies that he's happy just watching the sport that he always dreamt of playing. He's not going to keep striving to actually play it. There's also the fact that he takes 5 grand from the joint account and really doesn't seem to have put that much money into that room. Surely it should have been Gus's responsibility to do up a room in the tavern, or like Alex should at least be getting some sort of percentage of the profits from the beer sales that Gus gets that day. I don't know. But yeah, I just think in the grand scheme of 14 Heart events, this one doesn't really add anything to your experience as the player. It isn't a particularly funny or fun one, and yeah, it just falls quite flat for me in an otherwise great set of events that you get from Alex. The next one that I am not a huge fan of, I toyed between 2, and then I realised that whilst one of them is just not super fun, the other one I actively dislike. So I don't love Maru's event because I don't think it really adds too much to your story, your relationship. However, I actively really dislike Shane's 14 heart event. Alcoholism and depression and suicidal thoughts are a very heavy set of subjects to deal with in a game like Stardew Valley. I don't always think they're dealt with in the best way. Because they're only dealt with through like a series of 4 or 5 cutscenes, they can only be dealt with in quite a trivial way. I'm sorry to say, and I'm saying this from a place of love because I do love the game. But the 14 heart event just really felt so silly. Like, it felt like one of those old sitcom situations that could have been so easily avoided by communication. You know, things like Friends and Frasier and Everybody Loves Raymond, all of these sitcoms that you think, if people just communicated with one another, we would not have this show. It's one of those where you find out that Shane has been spending a lot of time in the tavern. Obviously, he struggled with alcohol addiction, so yours and Marnie and Jazz's minds instantly go to him falling off the wagon, so to speak. And he says things that really encourage that. So he leaves the tavern and he's like, what a great session, you know? He's saying things that can be construed as him talking about drinking a lot of beer. So there are 3 stages to his heart event. The first one is when you see him leave the tavern and make these ambiguous statements that could relate to drinking. The second one is when he leaves, you see him, you ask him if he has been drinking again, he gets upset and he just says, no, I'm not, and that's the end of that one. And then the next one is when you and Marnie decide to confront him, because if you're worried that someone who has had a history of alcohol abuse is doing it again, rather than sit them down and say, what are you actually doing, it's best just to ambush them when their guard is low, basically. So yeah, you and Marnie go and ambush him. It turns out he isn't addicted to alcohol, he is addicted to Journey of the Prairie King in Gus's tavern, and the cans that he's surrounded by are Joja Cola cans. He gets offended that you didn't believe him when he said that he wasn't drinking, even though he didn't offer an alternative explanation, which just makes him look more suspicious. It doesn't add anything to your relationship, it doesn't add anything to the map, it doesn't give you any items. He also has a games console in his little muddy footprint spouse space. So I don't know why he needed to go to the tavern to get his kind of fix of playing that game. But all in all, I just think it's not dealt with very well. I feel like it somewhat trivialises his alcohol addiction. Yeah. But now on to the ones I do like. I'm so much happier to be talking about the events I love rather than the events I far from loved. The first one that I really enjoyed was Abigail's 14 heart event. Now, throughout your relationship with Abigail, she mentions how she's always wanted to go exploring in the mines. There are events where she's hanging out near the mines, in the graveyard. You know, she's got a sense of adventure. She wants to fight monsters, she wants to explore. And I would say when you marry her, that dream doesn't go either way. You know, she's not in a place where she can't reach those dreams anymore, but she's also not going to the mines every day and fighting monsters. However, in this event, you are on your way, well, I guess up round to the direction of Robin's house, and you hear something in a bush, whatever it is, knocks you out. Abigail then comes, kills the monster, saves the day. Love her for that. However, she feels really bad about the fact that she took this creature's life to save yours, and so she suggests that you guys bury it, that you leave like a little memorial which then stays on the map. And the reason I like this one is because A, she gets to do something she's always wanted to do, which is fight a monster, but also it has such a realistic conclusion where, you know, not everyone is cut out for killing things, and Abigail realises that that's, you know, not her, which I always felt like to an extent. You know, she wanted to go and explore and things, but she doesn't come across as having some sort of bloodlust. It's just quite a fun one. You can be quite sassy to her, where it's like the world's harsh kid, which I didn't choose, but I feel like she probably wouldn't have responded very well to that. Yeah, I really like that one. It's one of my faves. I just remembered actually as I was talking about this, so Abigail was the first person. I wanted to go and get the capture of all of these 5 heart events so that I can actually show them whilst I'm talking about them and not have to pinch them from elsewhere on YouTube. So I downloaded some mods so that I could get through them quite quickly. and it was soul destroying. Having to go in and capture all of these heart events meant that I had to, you know, marry them, divorce them, marry them, divorce them, marry them, divorce them. And particularly for having to marry and divorce some of my favourite characters was really upsetting, because I was just going around. By the time I got to the last capture event, which I think was, actually I won't say who because I haven't given their heart event yet. No one was at my wedding because I'd been divorced 4 times, so that was 4 people who weren't attending my wedding. They were all making comments about how they thought that we had something special and they guessed they were wrong. None of them would accept my gifts. It was just a really sad time, and if you divorce them, the area or the item that you get from that 14 heart event remains, so I felt like I was just living in this museum of my divorcees. Now the next 14 heart event that I love is Sebastian's. Sebastian's quite an introverted character. He enjoys doing things by himself, and so I really enjoyed his 14 heart event because I think it really brings him out of his shell. So his 14 heart event happens on a rainy day because he loves the rain. And he has found a frog that is injured, and you can choose, well, I mean, regardless of what you choose, he is going to adopt this frog and try to nurse it back to health, but you can either be very supportive and be like an adoptive frog mother, or you can like frog shame him, but I would be the supportive frog mother if I were you. And yeah, the frog tank is then in your house. I just think it's a really nice story because it's quite different for Sebastian. He's often working on these projects quite quietly, like his motorbike and his programming and everything. Also, when that got added into the house, my cat spent so much time around the frog enclosure, and I don't know if that's coincidental or if that's something that they programmed on purpose, but I just thought it was a really nice touch that the cat was like, hello frogs. He was just kind of eyeing them up a little bit, whether it's for lunch or out of brotherly love, I'm not sure, but yeah, I really enjoyed that one. My final 14 heart event, and possibly my most favourite, no, you know what, it is my most favourite, is Sam's. I just think that it's such a great 14 heart event. I feel like it really goes above and beyond what a heart event can be in Stardew Valley. It happens on 3 or 4 separate occasions. The first is him saying that he feels like he hasn't really been doing enough. He's been lazing around a little bit since he's been on the farm, and he wants to do something in music, so he's going to apply for a job in the music industry. Which I think is great because that means he's one of the only characters who continues to pursue dreams after marrying you, and B, it adds an extra layer to his story that didn't exist before. So yeah, he applies for a music job. He then gets a sort of junior role writing music for a kids show, which at first he isn't super keen on, and then you bring him round, you say that, you know, someone's got to write stuff for kids. Actually, no, I think your argument's a bit more convincing than someone's got to do it, but, you know, it'll make kids happy. And you also suggest that he talks to his brother Vincent and kind of uses him as a bit of a sounding board, a feedback for the music that he writes. And the 14 Heart event concludes with him showing that music to Jazz and Vincent, them both loving it, and him really coming around to the idea of writing music for a kids show. It isn't where he wants to end up, but it's like he's happy with that as a stepping stone. And I just think it's so good because he gets a career whilst he's with you. No other character gets anything like that. You then get an item which is one that you can then play his music on. I think it's purely coincidental, but the first time I turned it on, he got the little like dots over his head and then walked over to where I was playing the music. I think it's coincidental, but I'm honestly not sure. But I just think if you compare Sam getting a job, starting on the journey towards his sort of dream job and really making something of himself, to Shane, and I don't mean this as a slight because, you know, Shane was battling with a lot of things, whereas Sam has had quite a nice upbringing. But when you compare it in content and everything to what happens with Shane, it's just, there's no competition. Sam's is just such a good 14 Heart event. I also nearly put Hayley's on here. And I know that Hayley is not the most loved person in the Stardew Valley community. I had some comments that really wanted to share how much they didn't like her on my last video, but her heart event I think is a really nice one, which is like a cute little bake sale that she does to raise money for books for the kids. But yeah, all in all, I think the 14 heart events in general are great. I love the idea that more might be added, you know, 16, 18, 20 in the future so that we can see more of these characters. And I understand that none of them needed to be like a conclusive end to a story, because the idea of Stardew Valley is that it's open, you can keep playing for a very long time. But yeah, I just think some of them are so much more fulfilling than others, and I would love to hear which ones you thought were really good. If you disagree with me, you thought that Shane's was your fave, you think Sam's was a heaping pile of garbage, I would love to hear from you. I would love to keep chatting, and yeah, if you think that streams and more Stardew conversations are things that you want to see from me in the future, please let me know. And if you have any suggestions, I'm also very open to those as well. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. Please give this a like if you did like it, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.